NCAA Elite 8 preview show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I am your host, Mike Goodpasser. Right now, I want to welcome in my two co-hosts. First up, Steve Risley.
Hello.
That's you, Steve. There you go.
Okay. You shortened my introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, I get disinterested sometimes after, basically just stroking your ego for an hour. Next up, we've got straight from Clemson. Well, he's not anymore, but he is straight. Sam Teets. How you doing, Sam?
Hey, Mike, how you guys doing today?
All right.
Wow.
All right. Who would have thought we would see 3 Pac-12 teams in the Elite 8, Sam? And we've got 4 West Coast teams.
Yeah, I know it's a bit of a surprise. I actually heard someone earlier talking about it, and they're like, maybe it's just because I'm on the East Coast, so I never get to see some of those night games. I just don't stay up to watch them. I watch all the games that are local most of the time. So maybe it's that they just didn't get enough exposure or whatever, but they're playing great basketball right now. There are some surprising teams like UCLA who are just turning it on and playing good every night.
Well, Steve, don't you think maybe when we look at this, the Big Ten, only one team, Michigan, do you think it's possible that not as many non-conference games this year, so you could play in a conference, and that conference looks really good, but the truth is they weren't playing the best level of competition all the time. They were just playing each other. And I think that we sold the Pac-12 short coming into this season. Hell, Oregon State, I think, was picked last in the Pac-12 this year. And come to find out, the Pac-12 is stronger than the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think definitely the Big Ten looks to be oversold for the entire season. That's a great point about not playing a lot of non-conference games to kind of get a good gauge on how you're going to feel how you're going to participate outside of your conference. And we may have oversold the Big Ten. Pac-12 is just kind of sitting out here, like you said, on its own accord. Nobody's really paying attention to them. Everybody in the West Coast, they've got their eyes focused on Gonzaga. I mean, you hit it on the head, Mike. I mean, I really can't elaborate any more than you did, except the only thing I'd add to what you said is, and I've said this almost every time I've talked about this, things change dramatically when the tournament starts. I mean, there's teams that are built to play tournament basketball, and there are teams that are built to play league basketball. And maybe the Big Ten's teams are right now more built to play league basketball than they are tournament basketball. So I've watched all 3 of the Pac-12 teams play, and they're relevant. I mean, I expect at least one of them to get to the Final Four. And I'm 50-50 on whether there's going to be a Big Ten team in the Final Four.
Well, how about this? You've only got 1 Big Ten. You've got 2 Big 12s. You got 3 Pac-12s. And then you've got maybe the 2 best teams aren't even in power conferences, Sam, and Gonzaga and Houston.
Yeah, no, seriously, Gonzaga has rolled over everyone they played. To be fair, I think we expected them to beat Creighton fairly handily, and they went out and certainly did that. They've won every game so far by over 15 points. And I kind of expect them to have their biggest challenge against USC coming up, obviously, because USC has some great basketball players in the Mobleys. And they went out there and they played and they beat the snot out of Oregon, who had a pretty good run in the tournament so far. And then you talked about Houston. I mean, defensively, Houston's a monster. We saw what they did to Syracuse the other day. Held Syracuse to 46 points, and granted, Syracuse might not have the best depth of talent in the tournament, but Houston's also shut down Rutgers fairly much and also obliterated who they played in the first round, like Cleveland State or something like that. So maybe not the highest level of competition. But I'm going to love to see that defense against Oregon State, because Loyola Chicago also had a very good defense, but Oregon State was able to neutralize that offense. I think that will be a really good matchup.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, that was the game out of the 8 games we saw over the last 2 days, Steve. That surprised me to what most was the way that Oregon State didn't just beat Loyola, but they really dominated that game. I mean, there was a couple times where Loyola made a little bit of a run, but you never really got the feeling that they had a chance to win the game.
Agreed. Yeah, I think, yeah, right. Oregon State controlled that game from the tip. And they had their down moments in the game, which will happen in any game to any team. You'll get into a little bit of a 2-minute shooting slump or something like that, or miss some shots that were makeable. But they've recovered from that nicely every single time, and they didn't panic when things maybe started to get a little less positive for them. I'm going to use that phrase because it was a pretty positive game for OSU. But they recovered nicely every time, and they kept focused on what their mission was against Loyola. So again, those are the things I look for in a tournament. How is team handling adversity right now? And I got to say, all 8 of these teams are handling adversity pretty well.
Well, you have to, or you wouldn't be here.
Yeah,
And
well, yeah. I mean, Gonzaga could probably have a slip up because I just think they're that far ahead of everybody else. But everybody's just playing well. But you're right. At this point in time, anybody now can win this championship.
all right, let's start off with the first game today, which is Oregon State. The Beavers will play the Houston Cougars. Now, the Beavers can play some defense. We talk about Houston, but this is a team that shut down Loyola, 5 of 23 from 3, 33% from the field. They did enough on offense. My question here is, Sam, when we look at this game, defensively, Oregon State's very good. Houston may be the best team in the country. I think the difference between Houston and Loyola is the way Houston can score on the offensive end, and I think that makes it really hard for Oregon State to get this win.
Well, yeah, and when you watch that Oregon State Loyola game, it felt like the difference in that was really that Loyola's offense kind of just stuttered out. And they had Krutwig, who was, I think that's how you say his name. He was, Krutwig, who was doing so well in the opening rounds, and he ends up with 14 points and 4 assists. But that's kind of pedestrian production for what you would expect from him. That's kind of big game situation. The question to me, though, is Houston has a lot more versatility, and they had a shortened eight in rotation against Syracuse. If they can get those guys out there and they're scoring the way they were, and they're scoring at a higher percentage, I think they could win this game. And Houston, like I said, is probably a better defensive team than Oregon State because Houston's done this throughout the entire year. Oregon State is more so coming on a defensive run recently. It's not something they've done throughout every matchup so far this season. And I just think that Houston has more versatile scoring options, and really comes down to for Oregon State, how well you're going to shoot the 3-ball. If you can shoot the 3-ball well, I think they can win this game. If they can't and Houston just outshoots them, it's going to be over.
Yeah, when I look at this game, Steve, I believe this is Houston's game to win because, as you said, Oregon State's going to rely on being able to hit the 3. The thing about Houston that makes them so good, that makes them, I think, the biggest threat to Gonzaga is the way they rebound the ball. And the way they rebound the ball is what had them dominate Syracuse. I think they out-rebound. I mean, they held Syracuse at like 5 offensive rebounds. When you look at that with 2 really good defensive teams, you got to figure neither team's going to be able to shoot the ball really well. So to me, the difference in this game should come on the glass, especially on the offensive end.
Right. And I think you and Sam both said it well, each bringing up a different point. I looked at this game with OSU and saw OSU, while they shoot the 3, they want to play an up-tempo game. They want to get it out and go. They want to move up and down the court quickly. They want to get themselves set up. And they spot up, and they look for good, legitimate three-pointers. They just don't dribble down, get to the three-point line, and fire. They run an offense based on that. But I almost started to think as I was watching the game, it's a little one-dimensional of an offense. And at this point in time, if you've got kind of a one-dimensional offense, you're going to be in more vulnerable position than teams that don't. Houston, I think, is arguably one of the 2 best defensive teams left in the tournament. And if you've got a defense that can shut down that up-tempo, where is OSU going to go as a backup? Now, then Sam comes on and validates the point that Houston's got many ways to score. They don't rely on any one type of style of play. I've seen Houston slow it down and walk it up and run a methodical offense, and I've seen them get out and run with anybody, and that includes a team like OSU. So Houston, I think, has more chinks in its armor or more bullets in its belt than OSU. But if OSU is doing what they do best very well, this is going to be a hell of a ball game because, as you both said, they're both great defensive teams.
So I assume we are all 3 going to pick Houston here then?
Yeah, I'll go with Houston.
I got to go with Houston.
All right, and we got to talk about Kelvin Sampson and the job he's done here. And he's done it at a school that's not in one of the Power 5 conferences. And this is a guy who, at the University of Indiana, Steve, actually did a really good job for 2 years, and then they made up some shit to get rid of him. And now Indiana's on the 3rd hire since he was brought in. So does this validate Kelvin Sampson, and does this kind of make Indiana look bad all over again?
I got to go off on a tangent. Where did you say he coached?
Who? Kelvin Sampson?
Yeah.
At Indiana.
No, you just said something different.
Don't think so.
Yeah, run back the tape. You said University of Indiana.
Yeah, whatever.
There's no such place as University of Indiana.
There's no such place as the Indiana University that is relevant in college basketball anymore either.
No, you're right there, but we weren't talking about the relevance of Indiana. We were talking about where Kelvin Sampson coached prior to that.
He coached at the University of Indiana.
I think it's kind of funny, though, that this morning at 10 o'clock, Indiana's holding a press conference introducing their, fifth newest coach. And then Kelvin Sampson's getting ready to put his team in the Final Four, possibly, here real quick. If they'd hung on to Kelvin, where would Indiana be at this point in time? But that being said, and I did hear Kelvin Sampson just signed a deal with Verizon cell phone service, too.
It's legal now, I think, so it'll be all
right.
It's
legal now, yeah. So,
the funniest thing I saw on Mike Woodsen being hired is Wikipedia immediately after he was hired. If you go to the Wikipedia page, it said Mike Woodsen was named the next coach to be fired at the University of Indiana because the fans have unrealistic expectations.
Oh, that's pretty good.
I thought it was great because I was trying to figure out if it was official or not. And I put it on Wikipedia because, of course, everything goes through Wikipedia.
Right.
And that's what I saw. Mike Woodsen was hired as the next coach for Indiana to fire. So,
no, I think Kelvin Sampson has proven his worth. I mean, he's a legitimate coach. I mean, he did well at Indiana. I think for some reason, they just wanted to get rid of him when he was there. And I'm happy for Kelvin. I mean, he was a good guy for the most part. I got along with him fine. I probably knew him as well as any of the other former coaches that have been coaching there. And he embraced the former players as much as anybody had. And I think he's got a good basketball mind, and he's cleared that hurdle of being accused of being a cheater. So far as we know, he's either gotten better at it or he's clean now and running a clean program. But to bring Houston back, and you're right saying they're not a Power 5 team, and they've got a legitimate chance of anybody's being in the national championship game.
All right, next up, we've got Arkansas against Baylor. That's the 1 seed Baylor against number 3 Arkansas. And my question here when I watched this, Sam, is Arkansas, it seems like every game they have to come from 10 or 12 points down. After a while, that luck's going to run out, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it has to, right? They have like 5 or 6 games this year. They said a stat when I was watching the game. They have a lot of games this year where they play from down, and they've had to come back to retake the lead. Although, if you're looking at it from the other side, I mean, Baylor was not head and shoulders above Villanova for most of this game. And Villanova is a team that's missing 2 or 3 key players in their rotation who haven't played in the entire tournament. And they still play Baylor close, almost wire to wire. Their Baylor pulled ahead at the end. But Villanova was in this game against Baylor. So I don't think either of these teams is unstoppable. They both have had kind of tricky games here. And Arkansas almost lost to Oral Roberts. It's a 2-point game. I said Baylor had to pull out at the very end there against Villanova. I think this will actually be a very close game just because these two teams right now maybe aren't playing their best basketball, or maybe they just don't have the luck to pull ahead and win these games head and shoulders above their competition.
Yeah, well, Sam, quick comment, Sam, to follow up. I was doing a little research this morning, and they said that Musselman has coached 5 there's 5 times now he's coached Big Ten or NCAA tournament games. All 5 times he's come back from double deficit being down in an NCAA tournament game.
That only works for so long.
Yeah, that's going to catch up to him. But still, to say 5 different times you've taken a team into the NCAA tournament and been down double digits and bring it back, that makes Arkansas be, like you said, very scary. Because I would liken Baylor right now to be the second best team in the country. The way I've seen them play and where they look, Houston probably right up even with them. But then for Arkansas to come in, Arkansas is not a team you can get up on and take a breath. You better stay on top of that team and keep drilling them, or you're going to find yourself all back in a dogfight again real quick. Because come back 5 times, that's pretty impressive to me.
Yeah, and they've done it all year. And the thing that's scary about Arkansas is, Steve, they're doing it with Justin Smith as maybe their best player.
Okay.
Indiana University's Justin Smith.
Oh, Indiana University, Justin Smith. I mean, you can go about anywhere you want to in college basketball these days. I was watching the Big Ten tournament. All I kept hearing about were all these players from the state of Indiana or from IU playing on other Big Ten teams. So, it's an easy time to pick on Indiana, no doubt.
Well, Indiana has allowed it to happen. When we
Mhm.
look at Baylor and Arkansas, who do you like, Steve?
I'm going to go with Arkansas on the upset here. I'm just going to go with Arkansas on the upset.
All right, Sam?
I'll say this: Arkansas dominated the offensive glass against Oral Roberts. And maybe that's just the size disadvantage. Oral Roberts is obviously a much smaller program than Arkansas. Neither of these teams, Baylor or Arkansas, shot the three ball very well. And if we're talking about just which team was probably better purely offensively, Arkansas probably is the team to beat right now in terms of offensive versatility in this game. So I will also side with Steve, and I will take Arkansas.
All right, I think you're both nuts. I think Baylor wins this game, and I think the reason is this. I think Baylor is a more consistent team. I think they are a better coach team with Scott Drew. I think they've got the better talent. I believe they will get up big. I believe Arkansas will come back. I think these teams are going to go back and forth till the last 5 minutes. And in that last 5 minutes, Baylor's consistency in coaching will win this game. I think Baylor wins the game something like 78-71 in a game that's close until about the 5 or 6 minute mark. And I think this, you can only get away with playing poorly and winning for so long. Baylor got away with it in the Sweet 16, but they played well the 2 games before that. And Arkansas has kind of been like this the whole way through. So I think what you get from Arkansas is the same thing you always get, and they come up short, or they come out and get on fire, play the games of their lives, and go to the Final Four. I'm just saying I'm going to bet on Baylor because I think Baylor is the better team with the better coach. And we've seen this before where teams, the Cardiac Browns in 1980, we see it all through where this team's always making these great comebacks and winning. That team never seems like it finishes, though, because it takes so much effort to get to that point that eventually your luck runs out. I think Arkansas's luck runs out here. I think Baylor wins. The next game, the UCLA Bruins against the Michigan Wolverines. This is a great Rose Bowl from the late 70s or early 80s. And when I look at it, Mick Cronin to me has done an outstanding job. And I find it funny because I live close to Cincinnati, and you got all these Bearcat fans that want a Mick Cronin gun because he was the issue. Mick Cronin goes to UCLA, Steve, and turns the program around in a heartbeat. I think they would have been in the tournament last year. They're in the Elite Eight right now. I think Mick Cronin's done a great job with this team.
I agree. The resurgence of UCLA basketball in Los Angeles is coming back. He's brought people back into Pauley Pavilion to watch games. They've been strong pretty much all year. They've played well. They play an up-tempo game. They play, to me, kind of a freestyle type of basketball. I tried to discern what their offensive schemes and patterns were. I couldn't find one, really. They have a couple guards that are good. They've got a couple physical guys that are good. I like the depth they have in the different ways to score and different ways to play defense. And the personnel they've got on this UCLA team, to me, is very versatile in the sense that they can match up, maybe not the greatest, but they can match up to just about anybody. A 7-foot center would be a nice addition, but I think Swin Nader finally retired.
All right. When we look at Michigan,
Sam, did you lose Mike?
Yeah, I lost Mike. I can't hear him.
Is that the best sound you've ever heard in your life?
Pure silence.
Pure silence out of Mike?
Yeah. Well, I'll say this because Mike brought. I can't still hear him. Mike brought Michigan basketball, so give me a second here. But Mike brought Michigan basketball. I'll say this: they're performing well considering they don't have Isaiah Livers on the team right now, and of course he was one of their best players going into the tournament. He's been out the entire time. They come out against a Florida State team that I think I picked to beat Michigan in this game because we were talking about they're injured, they're banged up. Eventually, Juwan Howard, the head coach, he's relatively new. We thought Michigan would run to a wall here. Instead, they come out and just clobber Florida State. Florida State does not have a good game. Michigan scores at 49% from the field, so great offensive efficiency. And they just go out there and they win a game against a very good very good Florida State team. So the way it's looking right now, I think Michigan's maybe been undervalued, maybe we've been underestimating them because their head coach is relatively new to this kind of system because they're missing some guys because of injuries. I think that plays a little bit of a role in here, but I would not underestimate Michigan going into this game.
That's funny. I'm feeling just the opposite. I'm feeling Michigan's kind of overvalued. Isn't that funny? How you think that? I think everybody's on the hype of Michigan because it's Michigan. and it is Juwan Howard, and he's the great savior to come in, the former player coming in, his kids playing on the team, and Michigan's looking for any kind of success out of their athletic department right now with the football program and the turmoil that it's in. And I look back, and yes, they did beat a very good Florida State team. Like that was a win they needed to have. Obviously, to keep playing, they needed to have it, but just they needed to have it for their own psyche too. Because I felt coming down the stretch of the Big Ten and into the tournament and things of that nature, Michigan State didn't seem to have the confidence, or Michigan, I'm sorry, didn't seem to have the confidence that a lot of other teams had, and kind of lost some games I thought they should have won, and let themselves almost slip out of a number one seed with some timely losses at the end, but they held on to it. And again, I give them credit because there's another team that's found a way to win so far, and they're there. So I don't know. I think UCLA might be the team of destiny in this tournament. Now, that's Cinderella story crap, because the better team's going to be the team of destiny most of the time, unless you're Milan and have Bobby Plump on your team, then you're never going to win. But I see Michigan as very vulnerable in this game. They're going to have to play well to beat UCLA. Because UCLA is all over the place. They looked a little disorganized to me, but in a positive way. Mike, are you back yet? We can't hear you, but maybe the radio can hear you.
Still can't hear him.
Still can't hear him. Talk with our hands? I don't know sign language.
He's probably insulting us right about now.
He's insulting us terribly right
he's gotta be.
Yeah, that's what I know Mike well enough to know. He's just lighting into us. Mike, why don't you try and hang up and come back on?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Does it sound all right?
Like you're in a tunnel, but it's okay. We can hear you.
Okay. Well, let's switch it back and see if it works.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Yep, they're good.
All
There
right,
you go.
we're good. All right.
All right, now light us up.
Why would I light you up? I mean, UCLA Michigan here is the most interesting game to me. In 1976, the last time a team went undefeated, UCLA and Michigan both made the Final Four, Steve.
Did they? That's right.
Because Indiana beat UCLA, then they beat Michigan. And then 20 years later, they became irrelevant. When I look at this game, I have undervalued Michigan all year. I didn't think they were that good. When I watched them the other day, they're consistent. They're well coached. They're hard nosed. They rebound the ball well. Defensively, they're very good. I think Michigan wins this game. I hope UCLA wins it because it pisses Cincinnati people off that Mick Cronin does good. But I think Michigan wins this game, Steve.
I think I've got to agree with you, Mike. If I'm gonna get advice or put the truth out there, I think you're right. I think I'm hoping for UCLA, but I think Michigan's a better team across the board. Although I think they're vulnerable. Of the final three number one seeds left, I think Michigan is the most vulnerable. But I still think they win the game.
All right. Sam, what do you think?
Well, I'll side with Michigan as well, but I will say this. UCLA's offense can be electric. They had 6 players going double digits the other day against Alabama, and once they hit – after Alabama hit that game-tying shot, I thought they would go into overtime with a little momentum. But instead, UCLA just ran over them in the game's final minutes. So I think that UCLA here – and they only had 8 turnovers in the game. They won the turnover battle pretty efficiently. So I think that UCLA is legit here, and I'm hoping we get another overtime game here, but I will give a slight advantage to Michigan.
All right, next up, we've got Gonzaga, undefeated, number 1 seed, trying to become the first team since the 1976 Indiana Hoosiers to go undefeated against USC. I will make this prediction. I think right now, if I'm Gonzaga, out of all the teams left, the game I would find the most difficult is the USC Trojans, Sam.
USC, they came out against Oregon. Oregon, who has won some close games here. I know they missed the first game, but USC played well, and they played really well the other day. Never at any point did I feel like Oregon was in this game. Maybe after the first 5 minutes. I felt like USC kind of ran away with it from there. and they had 2 players getting to 20-plus points. And that was really without Mobley playing that well. Either Mobley, really. Evan Mobley only had 10 points in that game. It was other players in this team that stepped up and got to over 20 points. So this team, what they do well, they score. They shot 58.8% from 3. That is insane. I don't know if they can do that 2 games in a row, but if you can get anywhere, you get 45% from 3, that's still good enough to go out there and blow out a team like Gonzaga potentially. Now, Gonzaga, of course, the offensive efficiency is insane for them. I think it'll be a close game, but just in terms of size, in terms of shooting, USC is dangerous.
So who are you picking?
I'm going to give it to Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga is just too good, and they got too much depth maybe for USC to handle. But I think this will be a very close game, and I really do like what USC has been doing recently.
All right, Steve, Gonzaga.
Yeah, I think USC is a team a lot like, and the Pac-12 may be somewhat similar to the Big Ten, and playing each other most of the time. You don't really get a good sense of how they're going to fare outside of their conference. Kind of like we talked about the Big Ten earlier. There's some truth to that too with the AC or the Pac-12. I personally think this is Gonzaga's tournament to lose. I don't think that USC I think they can give them a good game, but I think in the end, the relentless pursuit of Gonzaga, watching them play, those guys play as close to 40 minutes of good basketball as any team I've seen play college basketball in a very long time. They don't have down periods very often, and they're not very long if they do have one. And his fused depth, bench depth is good enough that somebody's not clicking. He's got people to fill gaps and get them going again real quick. Gonzaga right now is as complete a team as I've seen. I think Gonzaga wins this one. I think that USC will throw up a good fight. I think it'll be a good game to watch, but I think in the end, I wouldn't be surprised if Gonzaga wins this by double digits.
All right, I believe this. I believe the team that wins this game probably wins the national championship. I think USC is one of the tallest tournament teams. It leads the nation in blocks. It's one of the best in the country on the boards, and they are great at stopping the 3. They're great at controlling the tempo. Gonzaga has played nobody. I mean, even in the tournament, they've played nobody. When you look at this, I mean, the last team they beat, Creighton, wasn't as good as the 3 teams USC blew out. USC blew out Drake, Kansas, and Oregon. All 3 are really good teams. I think the defense has the ability, length, and talent to match up with the Gonzaga playmakers. I think you're going to see a lot of block shots. And the big thing to me here is the Bulldogs are not going to win the battle on the boards. They're not going to be able to get into the normal rhythm that keeps on pressing through even when things aren't going right. I think USC wins this game in a thriller by a point, 81-80.
Really? I would love to see USC work that inside-out game early in the game, though. I would love to see if they try to get inside, probe inside, maybe get some foul trouble with Gonzaga.
The other thing is this. Gonzaga has not been challenged since December. I mean, that's a long time. December to January, February, March. You're looking at 3 months since they've been in a real game where they've been tested. And like I said, Creighton wouldn't beat Drake. They wouldn't beat Oregon. They wouldn't beat Kansas. I mean, right now, the tougher road has been taken by USC. And the thing is, I think Drake's a really good basketball team. Kansas is a really good basketball team. Oregon's a really good basketball team. And USC totally dominated all 3 of them. I really think whoever wins this game wins the national championship. I believe USC is that talented. And on top of that, if we look at teams that have come into the tournament heavily favored, more often than not, they lose. I mean, if you look at UNLV 1992, or 91, everybody thought they were going to run away with it. They faced Duke. Duke had the matchup that gave them problems. You had a stud point guard, a big-time guy inside. They played well. They're good defensively. They won the game. I mean, this happens a lot of times. The Super Bowl where the Patriots are undefeated. They play the Giants. Are they better than the Giants? Yeah, they're 10 touchdowns better than the Giants. Until you look at the matchup in the trenches. The defensive line for the Giants is good enough to attack Tom Brady. Right now, what I'm telling you is this. Gonzaga has been to this point a lot, and they've always come up short. USC hasn't. USC's playing with house money right now. If USC loses by 100 points, they're supposed to lose by 100 points. USC is going to beat Gonzaga tomorrow night, and, Indiana can all rejoice. What in the hell would somebody have their phone on during a show? Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, that is my pharmacy calling telling me I've got to go get my COVID shot.
I thought you told me you got a COVID shot right when they came out.
No.
I've got the text. I've got an email. You even said it on a show. Liar, liar, pants on fire.
No,
Sam,
I did not. I've not gotten one yet.
You said you did.
I just qualified.
It doesn't take much to qualify. Are you breathing and stupid? Get a COVID shot. Go ahead, Sam.
No, I was just going to say, I hope USC wins too, because I think USC going in there would be a better storyline. Gonzaga has rolled over everyone so far. And you mentioned the favorites often losing. I mean, think about even Duke, I guess it was 2 years ago now, and had Zion, RJ Barrett, and Cam Reddish, all the high-level recruits. They go out and they lose to, I think Michigan State was at the time in the tournament. So we haven't seen a favorite come in, just blow by everyone and win in a long time. And I think USC going into the final, going to that point would be just more exciting. I love the brand style USC basketball plays. They shoot threes. They got the height inside to play good defense around the rim. I just love that team.
Yeah, and when I look at this, Steve, I mean, Arkansas, Baylor, all these teams are teams that could do it, but I don't think any of them have the length USC has, and I think they're the only team, when I look at them, I guarantee you they'll out-rebound Gonzaga, and that's a huge thing, especially if Gonzaga's a little off. And like I said, Steve, you've been on really good, dominant teams before that have kicked everybody's ass, and then when you finally play somebody that's really good, it can be kind of a shock to you.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I'm just gonna. My theory is based on the fact that in a long time I have not seen a team play to its potential as consistently as Gonzaga has, and I think Gonzaga's got immense potential. I don't care whether you play really tough teams. I do care, and I take that back. Let me retract that statement. I do care, but to be 29-0 and undefeated at this point in time, that's still, there's only one team that's done that, regardless of what conference league you've played in.
There's been a lot of teams to do that. I mean, we saw Wichita State do it.
Nobody's done it this year. Yeah, Kentucky got to the semifinal game.
No,
undefeated.
Yeah, they got to it, but they lost. And the other thing, if you look at Indiana State in 1979, Indiana State did not have an easy road to the Final Four. You know, they had to beat Arkansas and Sidney Moncrief. They had to beat the big 8 champion at the time, Oklahoma. I'm just saying, Gonzaga's competition, even in this tournament, they have not been tested. And that worries me if I'm a Gonzaga fan right now, because USC is going to test you. Because right now, if I look at these 8 teams, the team that's playing the best, most dominant basketball is USC.
Okay. Yeah, well, there you go.
All right. So it's agreed.
I would not. Yeah, I would stick with Gonzaga just out of. But that's okay. I mean, you make a good argument for USC, and
well, hey,
again, another game you'd like to see. Obviously, me being an Indiana grad and wanting to retain that record of the last undefeated team, I'm praying for USC to win. But
now you just sound like Don Shula and the Dolphins. That's sad.
Yeah. I would probably tell Indiana this year, Scotty and Quinn and Cruzy and those guys, I'm not sure I'd keep a lot of champagne on ice.
Well,
don't know if you'll be cracking it, this year.
I mean, if you look at this, I think Gonzaga's road gets tougher here because if you beat USC, you're going to play Michigan or UCLA. I think Michigan causes a problem for them, but I think they beat Michigan. I think Houston could cause a lot of problems for them. I think Baylor could cause some problems. But, I mean, really, the 2 toughest teams I see here for them to play, Sam, matchup-wise, are USC and Houston.
Yeah, and USC, well, Houston for the reason because of the defense. USC because of the three-point shooting to me and also the interior length. With Gonzaga, sometimes they just have the size advantage within their own conference. And then also the three-point shooting-wise, so far in the tournament, they've been one of the better teams from outside. USC has been one of the teams that's been better. I told you, they shot about 58, 59% in this past game against Oregon from deep. That's something that Gonzaga just can't match. Gonzaga might shoot 34%, which is still really good compared to the other teams in this tournament right now. But it won't come close to matching what USC can do offensively.
But I also believe this. USC is probably going to have to shoot 43 to 45% from three-point range to win this game.
Oh, yeah, they absolutely have to be on fire. They have to do what they did against Oregon or something similar to that if they want to win.
Yeah, and I know it's a stretch, Steve. I'm just saying that more often than not, the favorite comes up short, and it's why they call this March Madness.
Right, and I'm usually in your camp, Mike. I'm usually thinking like you're thinking.
Yeah, except for that year Michigan played Villanova. Remember that? That was fun.
And I think I picked Michigan.
Yeah, you did. And then you had to sing
I
on the
did.
show. Yeah.
I know. I just sing the Who's Fight song.
I think you sung One Shining Moment. We
Oh,
need to
yeah,
go
oh,
back
yeah.
and find that and play it for Sam when we do our Final Four preview show.
Well, you don't want to hear that. It's ugly.
Yeah,
I think Mike played it for me one time, actually. I think he did play it through his phone one time into the mic, and I had to listen to
I
it.
could probably pull it up right now if we want to hear it.
I don't think.
No, not really.
We're losing
it's
people
good,
as it is. I don't think they want to hear
Actually,
that.
we're gaining people because they think we're going to play it.
Oh, okay.
The Periscope just jumped from 5 to 20, and Facebook just jumped from 8 to 16. So
There you go. I'm in your guys' camp. I just think
he picked Gonzaga. So you
no.
guys are in your
I'm
own
staying
camp.
with my pick of Gonzaga. I'm going to bet against my heart. I think you guys are betting with your heart. You're hoping USC
He's
shoots well.
picking
You're hoping they
Gonzaga.
do things.
I picked Gonzaga too.
Gonzaga does everything right all the time, regardless of who they're playing. As I've said, one of the things Coach Knight always said, your opponent is not who you're playing. Your opponent is the ability to play to your potential consistently. I think Gonzaga does a better job of that than anybody, and they have a very high level of potential. They're very well coached. They're very organized. They're very methodical. They are not disruptible to any great degree. They have not shown that.
They haven't played anybody that was good enough to
Well, I don't know that matters. And the other thing I say about that, well, it does matter, sure. If you go play a Big Ten schedule, sure, you're playing tougher teams on a day-in and day-out basis. But every time Gonzaga won a game, that bullseye on their back got bigger.
I don't know, because I look at this, I see as many teams from Gonzaga's conference in the Elite Eight as I see from the Big Ten.
One.
It's 1-1.
1-1.
And there's more from Gonzaga's conference in the Elite Eight than the ACC or so there you go.
Yeah.
Because the ACC sucks, Sam.
I think the thing we're all coming to an agreement on is it's going to be a fun Elite Eight and a fun Final Four. I mean, you got to look at Gonzaga as the favorite to me, but it's up for grabs, really. Any team can falter one slip up, and I think you're toast because everything's that close. Sam, what do you think? You agree?
No, you're in a situation right now where one slip or one down game for Gonzaga, especially against USC, who was red hot the past couple of games, you get knocked down. I'm at the point looking at every team that's left here. Obviously, you've accomplished quite a bit. I don't know there's any team that I would say is particularly weak here in this Elite Eight at this point. So I think that just a bad game in general from any teams alone is enough to bounce one of them.
Yeah,
I think Gonzaga. I still feel comfortable picking Gonzaga. I know Mike is off on his own camp right now with USC, but I still feel comfortable picking Gonzaga.
Right, let's look back at the history of this show, Sam. When Mike's in his own camp, who's usually right?
Listen, I called you out on the Super Bowl pick. I knew you were going to be right about it, okay? I even said it on the show live. I wanted to have it said before the game actually got played out, but yeah, I'm fine with it either way, though. Like this time, I really don't have a dog in this race.
I picked the Bucks too in that game.
I told everybody, Steve.
All right, thank you.
Credit.
I have the text messages, Steve. I know you picked them.
Steve texted even people he didn't know so they'd know.
I'm insecure.
That's all right. You live in LA. What do you expect?
Yeah, everybody's insecure out here.
So what do you think about the Mike Woodsen signing at the Indiana University? Or the University of Indiana?
It's Indiana University. I mean, I think for a lot of reasons it's a great move. But some things have got to bear out. I mean, for it to be a successful move. It's hard to tell what Mike's relevance is going to be in college. He has not coached there. And I listened to his press conference this morning that he did. And he made some good arguments, but they're arguments. But Mike's one of my better friends at IU. We've stayed in touch. We grew up playing high school ball together, college ball together. And I think the world of Mike. I want him to succeed. I think bringing Thad Matta on is a very smart move for Indiana to do that, because Thad brings instant college coaching success to the program immediately and can guide Mike in some of the things he's going to face as a college coach versus a professional coach. Mike tried to liken it in his press conference that it's kind of the same thing. Again, I've not coached at either level, so who am I to make this comment? But I think it's a world of difference from looking at things from my perspective, the coaching in the NBA and coaching in college. I think there's got to be a significant difference. But Mike's an intelligent man. He's got 25 years of professional coaching experience. I think he'll figure it out. I think where he can be the biggest plus of that university is recruiting and bringing young talent from Indiana and around the states around Indiana back to playing at IU. And I think that's critical.
All right. From somebody who's never even seen the movie Hoosiers, Sam, what do you think?
Well, I'll say this. I do think that coaching in college is going to be different from coaching in the NBA. Obviously, in the NBA,
you actually have to coach.
Well, yeah. In the NBA, it's more about talent, I think, in the NBA, about having talented players on your roster, and necessarily the coaching itself sometimes. And I will say this about Mike Woodsen. He did get the New York Knicks to the playoffs one time back in the 2012 season, so that's something under his belt that not many people can say.
He turned the Atlanta
recently.
Hawks around. I mean, over a 5 or 6 year period, they went from being one of the worst teams in the NBA to like a 5 or a 6 seed in the playoffs.
Yeah, with the youngest team in the history of the NBA. The team he coached the first year there was the youngest age-wise team in the history of the NBA.
Yeah, so he's been at a point, and he was with the Hawks for a while, so he helped develop that team, that roster into almost a perennial playoff team at the time he left.
Right.
So I think you could say that he has shown the ability to develop and build these programs up in the NBA. Now, of course, college is very different with recruiting and all that stuff, so we'll see how that works out. But I think there is hope for success here at Indiana.
Let's not forget, Mike's got an NBA championship ring, too. He was assistant coach with Detroit one of the years they won it.
Yeah, I think he was there. That was in the early 2000s.
Early 2000s. He was the assistant coach.
It would have been 2003. Did they lose to the Spurs? Or did
I don't remember. It was put up on the screen. I just didn't.
Or is that the year they beat the Lakers?
I didn't commit it to memory.
The year they beat the Lakers was like 04, wasn't it, Sam?
That was, I'm looking up.
04,
The year
05.
all right, so the year they beat the Lakers was the 2003, 2004 season, so the 2004 NBA championship.
Okay. So
I think I think overall it's probably as good a move as Indiana could have hoped for. I think there are probably other people that have less interest in the program right now because trying to rebuild the Indiana program, the pressure on you is down as trodden as that program's gotten, sadly. It's going to take some time.
All right. You sound like you're about to cry there, Steve.
No.
Didn't it sound like it, Sam? Just a little bit?
His voice did change a little bit there at the end.
Yeah. I was burping up my Diet Coke, if you have to know.
Diet Coke's not healthy. I keep telling you that.
I know, but I have one in the morning instead of a cup of coffee.
Oh, okay. Lasso
1/3 the caffeine.
Who's Lasso Kabang? Hi, what's up, my man? It must be one of Risley's friends.
Yeah, I don't know.
Laszlo
Don't
Kabang.
know that person.
I don't either. All right, guys. We're going to wrap it up. We'll be back. What do you say, Friday, Final Four preview?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Well,
1 o'clock Friday. We'll preview the Final Four. And these guys will be able to eat crow as I gloat on my USC pick. But for now, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. You can follow
Mike, I hope you're right. Mike, I hope you're right. One time I'm going to get some Tabasco sauce to eat with that crow.
Okay. You can follow Steve Risley at SRisley34. You can follow Sam Teets at SamTeets33. Correct, Sam?
Correct.
All right. So we're out of here.
Sam, what is that with you? Why did you get 33? What? Can't you pick your own number?
Maybe it was his own number.
No, I picked it. I picked 33.
Well, that's pretty close to 34. Why don't you get something like 92 or 75 or 12?
Steve wore 34, so that's why he's up.
Yeah, see my jersey back there? That's my number.
Yeah. Most Indiana fans know that as Brian Evans' jersey.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
All right, guys.
Or Don Schluntz, or if you're really old, Don Schluntz.
Yeah, Don Schlunt won a national championship. You and Brian Evans. Well, you won a national championship, too. You was on the team. But Don Schlunt was like the stud on the 53 team. Wasn't he?
Okay. Can't get through a show without ripping on me.
You're the one that wanted to bring up your jersey. You knew where it went from there.
I didn't. Sam brought it up.
Well,
let's get out of here.
And Sam probably knew where it went from there, so it worked out good. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Make sure you check us out at Grilling Truth on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook. I think we're up like 35,000 followers now, Sam.
Yeah, let me pull it up. Yeah, we've been going up pretty steadily the past maybe month or so, the past 2 months.
Yeah, ever since we had Steve on again and got rid of Alex Gray. My Little Pony. All right,
I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot pole.
We're going to wrap it up. So for now, for Sam Teets, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpasser. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends